Dr. Khalid?
Yes, sir.
Yes, now we will be on live now.
Okay.
1 minute more.
Yeah, just let me know when to start, and I'll definitely do that.
We start now, Johar. Just only few seconds we will be live.
Okay.
And we'll let you to start talk. Yes, Dr. Khalid, you are live.
Thank you. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining what promises to be a very exciting session on the use of AI to help address the COVID-19 pandemic. This session is organized by Trends Research and Advisory and is part of their series Strategic Dialogue e-forum, which includes other events around COVID-19. My name is Khalid Al-Kofahi, and I am the head of research at Thomson Reuters, and I'm talking to you today from Toronto, Canada. It is my pleasure to welcome our four panelists, Dr. Munir Nazal, Professor of Vascular Surgery at the University of Toledo, Ohio, USA, Dr. Sabhan Desai, the CEO of Surgisphere Corporation, Chicago, USA, Dr. Conrad Ko, head of minimally invasive surgery at Ludwig Maximilian University Clinic in Germany, and our robotics expert, Dr. Bartek Stanchik, an engineer and a doctor at Sierra Engineering, also from Germany. This session will consist of 4 presentations of 15 minutes each, followed by 20 minutes of question and answer and discussion. We welcome and encourage questions from the audience. If you have any questions, please submit them through the YouTube chat. Before we start, just a couple of comments, if I may, about sort of what's happening with AI and machine learning and COVID. And the amount of work that is taking place on using AI and machine learning to address or help address COVID-19 is truly impressive. This morning, I ran a query, AI for COVID-19 on Google, and received 2.6 billion results, roughly. I looked through the first 15 pages just to make sure that they are legitimate, and they all seem to be in point. And the range of use cases that are being addressed using AI and machine learning cover at least 4 areas. There are certainly other areas, but these are the 4 areas that I was able to see: diagnosis, treatment, prevention, and the epidemic, the study of the epidemic itself. On the diagnosis front, we see a number of applications being developed focusing on detecting COVID-19 from X-ray images, CT scan, and other non-invasive techniques. And Dr. Sabhan from Surgisphere and his company developed one such application. Dr. Conrad will talk about using chatbots and robotics to help diagnose COVID-19 patients as well. And there are other sort of, certainly other interesting research going on. Some focus on the severity of infection and predicting outcomes to help physicians stratify cases and decide who should be admitted to the hospital and who should be allowed to recover at home. On the treatment front, we see a number of machine learning studies and explorations taking place. For example, Google's DeepMind are focusing on predicting the 3D structured proteins, which will help scientists understand the shape of the virus receptors and identify drugs that could disrupt how it binds to human cells. Other researchers are focusing on using machine learning to accelerate vaccine development, and others are trying to discover drugs that could be repurposed to fight COVID-19, for example, by looking at other viruses that share certain elements with the novel coronavirus. On the prevention front, we see an increased use of robotics to help prevent spread of disease. For example, by using robots to sanitize services, monitor people's temperature, using thermal cameras, or even monitor compliance with wearing masks. And Dr. Bartik will probably cover some of these areas in his presentation. And finally, at the societal level, a lot of work is taking place using machine learning to study the pandemic itself and to build models to inform policymakers and healthcare professionals. For example, using machine learning to forecast number of cases, potential deaths, not just at national levels, but also at local levels, and correlate that with local policies and other attributes of local populations. One of the interesting examples, and I don't know how well it works with all honesty, that I came across is studying the impact of the lockdown on the mental health of people, yeah, by analyzing tweets related to COVID-19 using natural language processing technologies. So with that, let's start with our first presentation. I think we start with Dr. Munir. Munir, it's all yours.
Thank you. Well, thank you for the Trend Research Organization and for my co-panelists for this opportunity. I cannot claim that I'm a COVID expert, but I'm a physician by training. And also we are trying to use artificial intelligence in everything we can nowadays. I will try really to cover the important parts in research and treatment especially. And of course, is not going to be an exhaustive mentioning of what's going on. Otherwise, we need a long time, as Dr. Al-Kofahi mentioned. There are millions of hits on the internet related to this problem, which nobody talks about this problem. We know when this COVID-19 started, it is a SARS virus. And this is not the first pandemic we face, but it is perhaps the first pandemic in our lifetime of this magnitude affecting many countries. And it was declared by WHO on March 11 as a pandemic, although it started December 2019 in China. This shows you how the spread, and this changes every day, of course. The most important part that the first predictors for this virus was really artificial intelligence, predicted that it's becoming a pandemic, and two artificial intelligence areas, which is Blue Dot from Canada, Health Map in the US, predicted that it might be it will be an issue for the future. And they even wrote a paper from Blue Dot saying that this pneumonia people talking about is going to spread to the world, and it will spread with the air travel. They relied on advanced analytics, natural language, and then they relied on other sources, medical reports, tweets, Google's queries. And although this is very exhaustive and extensive, it carries a lot of risk with it, because that's what we call the noise news, or the noise media. Doesn't carry facts with it that are all the time facts. Artificial intelligence, there are different types, but we can, or different ways of looking at it, but the simplest way is there is a huge data, and you put this data in some form of integration by a computer program to predict something and give you an explanation. You can say the big data is the diagnostic basics, the explanation is the treatment, of course. And these are the areas where artificial intelligence is going to work: early warning, tracking, treatment, diagnosis.
Munir, we are not seeing the presentations.
Oh, I'm sorry. It says share it though. You don't see it?
No, I see.
Okay, let's see again.
A picture of a beautiful island.
What about this one?
I don't see it still. Forgive me. Maybe you have two screens.
No, I have
and
one
we are
screen only. It is
okay.
only one screen. I'm sorry. Let's stay. I tell you, stop sharing, then I'll do it again. How about that?
Yeah. Yes. Maybe. Yeah.
You see?
Not yet. It's probably coming soon.
What about now?
It's probably loading because it says you are starting to share screen, but we don't see the slides yet.
Okay. Again, share. Did you stop sharing yourself, Khaled?
I'm not sharing, but I can try to share.
You need to stop
something.
sharing, perhaps, so that I share. If you stop
Yeah,
sharing.
yeah, I did not share. Maybe Conrad. You gonna stop sharing, Conrad?
Yeah, I'm not sharing.
Okay.
You should hit stop sharing because it says another unknown thing in my way.
I think maybe it's the recording. Maybe it's the recording that is. Let me verify with.
So I stopped sharing again.
Okay. Yeah, let's.
So there is a PowerPoint unknown that is interfering.
Yeah, I don't see it, but let's continue talking and then let me see if we can figure something out from this end.
Okay, anything?
No, unfortunately, no.
So I will continue then.
Yes, yeah, please go ahead.
So the areas and artificial intelligence gives medical experts a very strong head start in starting instead of looking at the data in different ways. They just have the data but put it together. So it is somebody running a marathon, but he starts in the middle of it rather than at the beginning of it. That's what really artificial intelligence. If we talk about treatment, which is the part I'm talking about, in the treatment part, really, the artificial intelligence will try to get new drugs discovered. And if it does that almost 5 to 6 times faster than the conventional method we know. Or it will look at the drugs that are already there and that being used, and it try to see if they have a use in the treatment of the current problem, which is in this case the COVID. Most of the time, the drugs take about 10 years to be discovered, cost about $2 to $3 billion if they are really huge, but with 90% failure. But with artificial intelligence, it's much shorter, perhaps 2 to 3 years maximum, and the failure rate is lower because you got rid of the noise in the discovery. So it really reduced the time and reduced the cost. So what we're looking at with COVID now, most of the time, what we are looking at, mostly no new drugs. It is repurposing of the drugs that have been used for something else. And the drugs to target coronavirus, most of the time by combining data from different mechanisms, looking at the knowledge, other drugs similar to it or other problems similar to it, other epidemics in the past, and then put the scientific data of the mechanism of action, and then examine more the virus, see what else can work like it worked on a similar virus, and use those drugs. That's pretty much. And we talked about the Google DeepMind, which predicted the structure of the protein of the virus for a while now, and people are using this structure really in order to come up with the new medications. But in the Google Mind group, they said we emphasize that these structure predictors have not been experimentally verified. And that's the problem with most actually artificial intelligence related to science. You need to verify it. We cannot be certain of the accuracy of the structure that we are providing. That's what Google Mind said, and that's pretty much one of the problems. Deep learning based drug target interaction model, like different drugs, and one of the drug group that was found that might work is the antivirus. So a group from Korea, actually, they looked at the different antivirus medications, and they found that some of them might work on coronavirus, and that include one of the drugs which called Zanavir, and works on HIV, and they use it for the treatment by COVID virus. Then there are 3 more drugs, all of them are antiviral. But these are prediction studies. Prediction study says we think it will work, but we don't know if it will work. We have to prove, so we need another study. One of the drugs that...
Can I just one quick note? The organizers would like me to stop sharing.
Okay.
And just continue talking, please. Yeah.
Okay. So I need to see my slides, though.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just don't share. Yeah.
Okay. So,
thank you so much.
One of the drugs is actually what we call it, the one of that being developed by Eli Lilly for a long period of time, since 2018, and it inhibits kinase. And they found that actually one of the mechanisms COVID virus work is through kinase, cytokine storm. And if you prevent that, you will decrease the respiratory and the storm that comes with the COVID virus. The drug is called parasitinib. And it was that through artificial intelligence, they identified 370 kinase inhibitors, and then they narrowed it down to 6 of them through artificial intelligence, a process that might take actually months, if not years, to reach to this conclusion. But they managed to do it by only 4 researchers over 3 days. If this has to be done through the usual way to get the same answer, you need 250 researchers, they estimated. So this is one of the advantages. And this was done by a London-based artificial intelligence company called Benevolent. And they actually looked at the virus action, the drug action, and then they said that might work in COVID virus and is going to be tried. And the medicine is there. It's called Olimium. And people use it for other viral HIV and other medication. Actually, this specific drug also used in rheumatoid arthritis, and it's been used for rheumatoid for a long period of time. And because of its potential, it's in the market. The complications are known, so it will be perhaps one of the first drugs to be used. It entered between actually one of the universities and Benevolent, to go with Eli to doing the study soon. It is actually the main function of this drug to be on the respiratory functions. And it's published already in the Lancet in February 15 as one of the potential drugs for the future. Then there is another group in the ResearchGate. They identified a number of screened drugs through artificial intelligence, including antiviral and other medications, at least 6 of them. Brivalidin, I'm not going to go through all the names, niclosamide, and Reserpine is another one. And they think that might work, and they publish it actually recently in one of the journals by a group of researchers from Singapore. What about the vaccine? The vaccine is another area that artificial intelligence will help by looking at the components within the virus, similar viruses or other problems, looking similar components, and come up with a basic understanding of the virus, and then basic understanding of the vaccine and the candidate for the vaccine. These 2 steps are completely covered by artificial intelligence. But then after that, you need to put it, of course, in a preclinical trial and then clinical trial. Then you need to do a regulatory approval and production. That takes a long period of time, but because of the urgency, they expect there might be a vaccine very short. And actually, they started trying once in the last 2 days, and they think it might work. But of course, it will take a long time before we know it will work or not. And the artificial intelligence made this vaccine actually to happen in a short period of time much better than waiting through the regular processes. Then there are other medications that will combine the antiviral and the anti-inflammatory treatment, because nobody understands the COVID, how does it work very well, but they know it's a virus, penetrate the cell, and it multiply over a short period of time into millions of molecules and viruses, and then it paralyzes the cell until it disrupts all the functions of the cell, causing inflammation in many parts of the body, even remote areas, and causing also hypercoagulable conditions. They think a combination of antiviral, anti-inflammatory might work, and this been also published in the Lancet recently looking at that potential. There are many drugs, many companies working on the drugs currently for using artificial intelligence for the COVID virus, including South Korean company, Hong Kong company. There is a company in Paris working between artificial intelligence and another company in California, combined effort. The other one, UK-based company, which is working with Scrip on research, in addition to the London company, Benevolent, that I mentioned about. It is very helpful to get artificial intelligence to provide us the data we need, but it has a major problem. So what artificial intelligence look at a huge number of data. A lot of it is noisy data or outlier data, such as Twitter, Facebook, media of different parts. So to filter that information sometimes is the difficulty. The other problem is the data privacy. So the privacy of the information and the privacy of the companies, privacy of the individuals is going to be affected by this sharing process, and it will raise also multiple questions about the public health concerns for the individuals. And the main actually function of this large data now might not be at this current pandemic. Hopefully, and hopefully it will not happen. If this happens in the future and people thinking there will be another attack of COVID virus sometime in even fall, perhaps we will be more prepared using the artificial intelligence to counteract this. Recently, there was a coalition of artificial intelligence company called C3 AI Digital Transformation Institute was formed, including a number of universities, Microsoft, Princeton, Illinois, University of Chicago, Berkeley, Carnegie Mellon University, and others, to have a powerhouse between artificial intelligence and those 6 universities, asking for grants and people to cooperate in order to reach some form of a treatment, prevention, and others related to COVID. Actually, Dr. Desai and myself, in one of those grants, we applied to one through somebody in Carnegie Mellon, because they have to be one of those universities. Hopefully we will get the grant soon. As I said, the pitfalls: big data, algorithms are unknown. We don't know how people can reach to the conclusions. It is a very black box. Nobody knows the conclusions are reached how. There's a lot of noise from the social media. There's a lot of filtering that is required. The fake news, what we hear all the time nowadays, fake news and data, bad data is a problem. Lack of accurate data. People, like, every now and then they claim there's a drug works, that drug works, but then people go back and look at it, is not working. This lack of accurate data, outlier, noisy data, make actually artificial intelligence role a little bit affected nowadays, although its job to bring the drugs into existence is really a major job. And it is improving the access to those medications that hopefully in the future we will have. With this, I will stop this part. I'm sorry for the technical problems, and I'll leave the stage for other colleagues now.
Thank you, Dr. Munir. Thank you so much. And next, Dr. Conrad Ko. will start his presentation. You are on mute, Dr. Conrad.
Right. Now it should be better. Thank you very much for the invitation, and I'm honored to be here with you in this important webinar event. The cybernetic revolution started actually for years, and with the pandemic and the global lockdown, we have the experiencing a quantum leap of artificial intelligence development, especially in medicine. It is impressive how many cases we find where the artificial intelligence is used against the COVID-19 pandemic. But let's focus on diagnostic. I'm surgeon, but because of my personal interest in artificial intelligence, I'm also a part of some diagnostic procedures. But I screened a little bit the internet, and I was surprised that we have so many used of machine learning, especially in diagnostics, and I'm very happy about that. So let's see what I found. I will share my screen. Yes. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see it. Thank you.
Is this now completely? Yes.
Yes. Yeah, we can see your screen. Thank you.
Great. So then first, let's talk about chatbots. Chatbots for COVID-19 diagnostic. What is doing so the chatbots? They're asking questions about temperature, the typical symptoms, travel history, geolocation, and so on. And what we can receive, we can evaluate the likelihood of the person is being infected. We can estimate the risk. We can give the information about the hospitals which are in a region where the patient can go or use. And the chatbots are using mobiles, tablets, and computers. Today, the hospitals are really under the stress, and the chatbots are helping the personnel, the staff, the doctors, and the whole staff of the hospitals to reduce the footfall they are currently experiencing. In US, the CDC, together with Microsoft, created a chatbot, which is really nice. I chatted. I tried to use it, but it is only for the US citizens. In the EU, we have something very similar. It was, we were starting with it in end of April. And its name is Symptoma, and it's really a very good solution for COVID-19 to get the patients the feeling they are pretty well informed and started to treat it. I also tried to find out if the hospitals of corporations are getting into this area, and I was very surprised. In Germany, we have more than 20 chatbots for COVID-19, which are different in the different hospitals, but in general, they are very similar to each other. But I was concerning about something completely else. When we collect the whole information which we can get from the chatbots, I think on this base, we can make a very important social political decisions. And this is maybe the most important news for everybody, and the need to use the chatbots for the diagnosis of COVID-19. We have also in the hospitals completely different problem. There are patients who don't know they are infected, that they are as patients there, and they are potentially dangerous for the others. So they are patients which are asymptomatic with infection, and they are also dangerous for the others. There are patients who already are admitted in the hospital, but they could be potentially infected from the patients, other patients, or even from the hospital staff. And we was thinking about how we could possibly be focused on such a dangerous case, and we tried to make a program for and install some sensors in the hospital, in the patients' rooms, who are be able to automatically detect the occurrence of cough, fever, higher heart rate, or higher breath frequency. What allows us to tell about such a situation? We can focus to make the COVID-19 testing, and we can introduce the faster examination. So in the same time, we can improve the patients and the personal safety. Such a screening and artificial intelligence screening or machine learning screening should be installed in airports, railway station, public administrations, buildings, maybe also in the big factories. Why? For the same reason, because when we close this extreme unusual situation right now and start to run the business, start to opening all the public facilities, we will have the problem with the rebound of and getting again the bigger number of the infections, and this simple screening could allow us to implement a little bit more safety, and maybe we will not have to make again the close down for the whole population. I was looking in the Wikipedia and I found something what is absolutely amazing. It is, I copy-pasted in this slides, and I will read it shortly. Most of people infected with, I don't want to say what it was, develop higher fever, cough, shortness of breath, and so on, then severe pneumonia, and so with intensive care is often required. What was it? It was influenza A from the birth, and it is amazing. It was in 2013, and it was also the time where we introduced in the airports the screening for the fever from the patient, from all the passengers. Another very interesting tool was developed by Surgeons Fair Corporation in Chicago in USA, and they recognized the infection of COVID-19 by almost 100%, only based on machine learning, which included the initial presentation of the patients by hospital admission, complete blood count with differential, and the findings of X-ray of the chest. And it is amazing what we could conclude after examining only a small group of patients, 5,000 patients. It is not so much. It was 37 hospitals were involved, but what is incredible also in medicine, it was the positive detectivity value was more than 99%. The negative predictive value was also not more than 99%. Sensitivity 99%, and the specificity also almost 100%. I really don't know any other diagnostic tool which we are using right now which have such a values. In Germany, this is also the project where we are taking part. We started to do some applications by deep learning on the CT scans by COVID patients, and we saw immediately the promising results. And then there was the idea to start the project for more clinics, and we created the page and get some funds for that with machine learning to predict the patients and permanent in the ICU to see the disease progression, and then afterwards to allow maybe the survey analysis. This is how the page looked like. We have 7 clinics right now and more than 100 cases which are already in. And I do believe we can share also this software for everybody in the whole world who wants to use it for clinical purposes. In summary, I would like to say that machine learning and AI and innovation actually is our disposable tracker for the coronavirus outbreak. The new complex problems require modern solutions, and artificial intelligence and machine learning is one of it. And everything we learn now will prevent and reduce the new pandemic's appearance with the other pathogens in the future. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. Thank you so much, Dr. Conrad. Very, very interesting talk and presentation, and I'm sure will generate lots of questions from the audience and from fellow panelists. And I think next we have Dr. Sapan Desai. Sapan, do you want to take it?
All right, wonderful. Hello, everyone. I trust that you're able to see my screen. Is that correct?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
All right, wonderful. Hi, everyone. It is a privilege and honor to be here, and I appreciate the invitation. And to my friends Munir and Conrad, thank you for mentioning some of the work that we've been doing. Conrad, I appreciate the slides around some of the tools we've developed, and thank you for highlighting some of those. My name is Sapan Desai. I'm a vascular surgeon here in Chicago, and I'm also the president and chief executive officer of a company called Surgisphere. Surgisphere has been around since 2008. It is a cloud-based healthcare data analytics and medical education company. And really what we do is we are a real-time global research network. We have over 1,200 healthcare partners on 6 continents. We work with hospitals, we work with medical practices, we work with physicians. And really at the end of the day, as a physician-led public service organization, our goal is to improve the quality of clinical research and the health of all patients. And so we are all in line in terms of achieving better clinical outcomes using data, using machine learning, advanced analytics, artificial intelligence, deep learning, and together combined with some very rich data sources, trying to improve the safety and efficacy of the medical devices we use, the pharmaceuticals we come in contact with, the clinical management algorithms we use in clinical practice. All of it is destined to help improve the cost of care as the costs continue to escalate over time. And at the end of the day, we are also trying to achieve scientific collateral, evidence-based medicine, things that lead to high impact publications. And so how our system works is, as mentioned, Surgisphere is a cloud-based data analytics system. We are, through our partnerships with hospitals and whatnot, we have data acquisition that happens directly via the electronic health record. We also have a very unique point of care data source that allows us to capture point of care information about procedures, SF-36 quality of life surveys, and more. Using a combination of machine learning, natural language processing, and automatic conversions with a very good data dictionary, we're able to convert that information combined with other sources of data like supply chain and financial systems to really capture a very large amount of healthcare-based information. This is very different than a public administrative data set, different than a claims-based database. We are actually capturing some very detailed, very rich information around patient demographics, their comorbidities, various medications that patients are taking, and imaging results, again, through natural language processing and image analysis, point of care information, capturing data on some of the patient care aspects that relate to procedures and seeing a patient in clinic, measuring outcomes, harmonized to value-based metrics, pay for performance type metrics, looking at the hospital course of a patient, looking at the follow-up for these patients as well. And all together now, since at least 2010, we've collected very detailed information on about 240 million unique patient encounters. It comes out to well over 100 million unique patients. And remember, each of these encounters has literally 1,000+ data points attached to it. So this is a petascale, petabyte-sized database that exists today. In addition, one thing that we realized in March is as we were collecting real-time information from our global research network, we realized that we had very detailed information on 160,000 COVID-19 patients in the database today. And so all of this, we're an ISO 9001 and 27001 certified organization. We're independently audited. The work we do is used for FDA real-world evidence purposes. And the ISO certifications mean that we've reached a very high level of data security and data integrity. The reason all this matters, especially around COVID-19.
Can I ask you to, if you would please make, sorry to interrupt, go to presentation mode, full screen.
If I go to presentation mode, you'll lose the presentation.
Okay, never mind.
Yep.
We'll stick with this one. Thank you so much.
Sure. So in terms of why this is so important, the big data we're capturing includes a lot of elements around the patient care, which become very important when you start doing clinical research. We, as clinicians and researchers, want to know more about the patient's demographics, their comorbidities, the various factors related to their hospitalization. If a sick COVID-19 patient gets admitted, we want to know how sick are they? What are their Q-SOFA scores? What is their oxygen saturation? What are their vital signs? What are the presenting symptoms? What medications were they taking before they came to the hospital? What medications were started de novo in the hospital? As you can imagine, this is a tremendous amount of information. And so all of this feeds into our software, which is called Quartz Clinical. It was ranked #1 for machine learning by Frost and Sullivan in 2019. And all of this has been used to create what we truly believe is next generation informatics. Unlike other large registries and public data sets, which are missing values, are not comprehensive, and are incomplete, through our system, which has automated data acquisition, recovery of missing values, it's a cloud-based data warehouse with enormous computing resources behind it. We're exceeding the data collection standards that have been created thus far by other major regulatory agencies. When you combine that with artificial intelligence and machine learning capabilities, you are looking at something which starts to be transformative in healthcare. It's no longer iterative, it's hopefully innovative. And so now, if you believe that we have a large big data repository that you can mine for clinical research, the question becomes, how do you do it? How do you do the data analytics behind this and apply it to a model like COVID-19? And so for those of you familiar with machine learning, there are dozens of different algorithms you could use and a dozen different ways to use the algorithms. One algorithm that became very important for us, and all of this is done using fully de-identified data. There's no protected health information or anything like that in this database. So it really makes it open for collaboration and research. One of the algorithms we looked at was a random forest model, and very sophisticated machine learning algorithm. Unfortunately, it's also a black box, as my colleagues have already mentioned. And so when you start going into scientific peer review processes, you're dealing with an application that you want to do on an exascale basis, roll it out to the world, where you may have 250,000 people using an application simultaneously. That's not necessarily using a very complex convoluted neural network or a deep learning model or random forest model. Sometimes we have to make trade-offs for practical purposes. And so I'll get into some of those details in a second. The big benefit of using a more classic machine learning model like decision tree analysis is that it's more transparent, maybe more suitable for peer review. And until the rest of the scientific world catches up to understanding the true potential around some of the more sophisticated machine learning models like random forest, support vector machines, convoluted neural networks, and more, we may have to walk everyone through this so that they're all at the same level in the next few years. A good example I want to give of some work that you can achieve with big data and with a kind of backbone we've built is a publication that we published in the most recent issue of the New England Journal of Medicine. This was in their May 1st issue. And so with my colleagues at Harvard and at the VA, universities throughout the United States, we have an article on cardiovascular disease, drug therapy, mortality in COVID-19 patients. And this is truly big data. It was 8,910 patients collected from 169 hospitals on 3 continents. And the database since that point has swelled significantly. Now it's over 160,000 patients coming from hundreds of hospitals on 6 continents. And the premise of this paper is that we looked at the role of various cardiovascular risk factors and their association with mortality in COVID-19 patients, and no big surprise, but obviously things like coronary artery disease, congestive heart failure, and arrhythmias are associated with a greater risk of mortality. Surprisingly, and this is very important, we found that medications like ACE inhibitors and ARBs and statins are not associated with mortality. It's an important finding. There are millions, hundreds of millions of patients using some of these medications. And now we have evidence that says that these medications are not associated with a greater risk of death. In fact, there's a signal that says that there may be something else going on with these medications. This is an observational study. This is not a randomized controlled trial. It does not show cause and effect. But the point here is that we have used big data, machine learning, artificial intelligence, cloud-based dynamics to get to a signal here in a way which is not possible using classic research tools that are available to us today. This sets the stage for the next important randomized clinical trial in this arena. And so that brings up another tool that we've already developed around COVID-19. My friend Conrad and Munir have already mentioned some of this in their talks. Using our data acquisition system, our AI-based data warehouse, we collected data on over 56,000 COVID-19 patients, looking at their clinical outcomes, generating a risk score, using machine learning applications, and then taking it all the way from the design stage, the measure and analysis stage, all the way to completion with a web-based application. And what we developed was a very sophisticated yet very simple to use severity scoring tool. And so as the number of COVID-19 patients around the world increase into the millions, we're replicating what happened with the 1918 flu. This is leading to severe stress with our limited resources. And so it's critical to improve care efficiency. And part of that algorithm means gauging the severity of illness is very important. And so at surgisphere.com, we've developed a series of free tools. As mentioned, we're a physician-led public service organization. We are here to make the world a better place. These tools we've developed are here for international use by anyone who wants to start delivering higher quality, more effective care using a tool built off literally tens of thousands of patient data points. And so this allows real-time reporting. It gives a recommendation as to the severity of a case and really allows physicians to understand just how severe that patient is in terms of whether they'll need oxygen or antibiotics or critical care in a mechanical ventilator. And so this has been put together as a publication. It's been submitted to a leading medical journal, and we're expecting this to be in print hopefully within the next few weeks. What we've created is a tool that has an overall accuracy of 86.4%. This is a generation ahead of any kind of multivariable regression analysis. This is truly high quality, very fast, applicable machine learning that's transparent for clinical science and publication purposes. And so we developed this in conjunction with frontline healthcare professionals, public health experts, and this tool has now been used all around the world. Hundreds of countries, used by over 250,000 frontline healthcare professionals on 6 continents. It's part of how academic medical centers and other hospitals are implementing care management pathways for COVID-19. And in conjunction with the International Federation for Emergency Medicine, the African Federation of Emergency Medicine, we've implemented this as a public health tool at more than 1,000 hospitals throughout Africa. It's been featured by the Center for Evidence-Based Medicine at the UK. It's been highlighted in an editorial by a leading public health authority. This was published in the African Journal of Emergency Medicine by my friend Lee Wallace, who is the head of emergency medicine at Cape Town, South Africa, where he talks about how important tools like this, data-driven machine learning tools are to delivering higher quality, more effective care. These tools save lives. And so one point that I want to make is when history recants COVID-19, this is going to be about how we use big data and artificial intelligence to solve problems. This is what is going to catalyze our entry into 21st century medicine. And this is what makes us different than what happened in 1918 with that terrible pandemic. And so a few points I want to make is we are here for physicians, hospitals, and societies. We are developing international partnerships. We have endorsements from international collaborators where we're helping to deliver higher quality care for a more affordable cost. We use machine learning powered analytics. We have real world applications for this information. And at the end of the day, this leads to what everyone is going after, which is high value healthcare. We're looking for improved clinical outcomes, value-based purchasing wins, making care more affordable, decreasing hospital readmissions, and getting transparency throughout this entire process. The end goal for COVID-19 is we want a data-driven approach that leads to real advances in care and lives saved. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm happy to provide any more information about who we are and what we do. And please stay safe as the pandemic continues to unfold around us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stepan, and nicely done. And thank you for your work and dedication to providing better healthcare for everyone.
Thank you.
And last but not least, we have Bartek.
Hello, everyone. I'm trying to share my presentation as well with you. Is it working?
Fantastic. Thank you. Yes, we can see your slides.
Okay, so thank you very much for inviting me. I'm very honored to be with you tonight. And that's the title of my presentation, Using Robotics to Ensure Social Distancing. And I was thinking, what shall I say about robotics ensuring social distancing? And then I realized that, well, you may have robots to basically to force you to stay at home, but this is not what you want. You don't want to just be distant from other people. You want to really act. You want to do and achieve what you would do if there was no social distancing. So I thought about converting this title into reaching the unreachable, because this fits more what we are doing in my company, Acrea. We want to go to the areas which we couldn't reach otherwise. We want to achieve the unachievable, to reach the unreachable. And this is what the surgeons do when they enter human bodies, to reach the unreachable areas of the human body, to enter an isolation ward where the patients are, and you want to help them. You want to go to some distant area where you wouldn't go normally, and you want to do something there. You don't want to. This is how we can maybe assure social distancing, when we enable people to do what they are used to do with robots while staying in a safe distance. So we, in Acrea, we're thinking how to empower people to do what they do, to help other people. And this is one of our patients, or our users. He's a tetraplegic. His name is Jan, and he stays in a wheelchair the whole time, and because he cannot move his limbs, he cannot move his arms, he cannot move his legs. For him, we've built this robotic arm, which basically replaces his own arms. And using this arm and this control system, he's able to live the independent life. He's able to reach the otherwise unreachable bottle of water, some piece of food which is on the table. And basically, this brings me to my how my journey with robotics started. It started in 2000-ish, in early 2000, in TU Munich. And this is a slide from my early research, where we had a project about high fidelity telepresence and teleaction. Telepresence means to be present somewhere where you couldn't be because there is some barrier. In this pandemic times, it's of course easy to imagine the barrier, which is the possibly some door in a hospital, closing the clean and the dirty area. back then we're talking about catastrophic scenarios when you would have a robot entering a dangerous area, and you would, I don't know if you can see my mouse, and you would control this robot using all the control inputs, controlling the robot's motion, the arms, the legs, the vision, the head, the voice, and whatsoever. Back then, we were also working about giving this robot the sense of touch, that's why this robot has a force sensor. And we were working, first of all, on robots which you can touch. So our robots were not like, you know, some industrial robots being locked in cages, but a robot which you can really touch, because it would have recognize that you touch it, it would measure the forces, and it wouldn't harm you. So this otherwise dangerous and stiff device made of, you know, aluminum, steel, and etc. By giving it the sensors, we would enable it to be human capable. And using this robot, we would control it using an input device to touch the environment, to sense that we have a soft sponge or a more rigid object like this cone. And we would feel these forces. We're so proud to be the first in the world back in 2003 to screw a screw in 6 degrees of freedom. And this was an experiment which was made between a university in Munich and the university in Berlin. And we were able to screw this screw with a force sensor. We were also working on mobile telemanipulation. So you would have a mobile robot with a platform to enable the mobility, and the head with a stereo camera. So as you can see, it's like a full embodiment of a human operator and the robot moving in a dangerous environment. We were also giving this robot a sense of touch in terms of fully actuated robotic hand with 3 fingers, being able to grasp and feel the forces. So this is, as I said, 2005. These were the times when the artificial intelligence were not so elaborated and so advanced, so that we thought we still need a human to take decisions. We still need a human to have the human perception of the world. I wonder if this has really changed. We still need people to take decisions, and we have artificial intelligence, we have machine learning to support us in perception, in analyzing big data. But I think we still need humans. In this case, we will need doctors to take critical decisions. So either if we have robotics, if we have big data and we have machine learning, I think we'll still have doctors to take decisions. Why am I talking about it? With my company, which is Acrea, and it's located in Germany and Poland, we make robots for R&D. So for more than 15 years, we've been building robots for different research projects. And we started with this one here on the left. It was a robot which would enter human space, urban space in the city of Munich, and would ask people how to get from A to B. For us humans, it's a very simple thing. We just ask the way how to get to the Marine Platz, and people would answer. However, it's not that easy to understand this question. Some people would say, go left at the big building. Someone would say about a church, and someone would mention something completely different, and they would all mean the same thing. And you want this robot to interact socially with people so that it keeps all the social distance and the social regulations that we observe. So it would have also what you can see here. It has a face with facial expressions. Here on the right, I think the video is over already. we had a project about skill transfer from humans to robots. So this pick and place is a good example where you have a human just moving an object from A to B and robot trying to do the same thing just by observing the humans manipulating the objects. This is how we learn and basically our living organisms. This video shows how robots could share the workspace of a car garage with humans manipulating big and heavy objects. What I want to point out is these projects where we support, as our company, we support researchers from universities, mostly in Germany and in Europe, with bigger research projects. And I would like to tell you about this one. It's called Remedy. It's called Remote Medical Diagnostician, and it's about remote ultrasound. We were working on this project like 5 years ago, and back then it was difficult to convince people that you really need it. Now you don't have to convince anyone that you need it. What is it? In the normal classical situation, typical, when you have a doctor sitting next to the patient, holding the ultrasound probe and observing the ultrasound on the screen, you may get infected while if the patient is COVID positive. So what we want to do, we want to keep the doctor in a safe distance, controlling a robot, moving the probe and touching the patient, and also manipulating the probe with force feedback, so that the doctor can feel the forces that are measured at the same time. They can talk to each other because we have of course, teleconferencing system. We had a very nice consortium with universities, European universities. And this is how the robot looks like. It has an arm with an ultrasound probe. It has the 2D, 3D cameras and the whole teleconferencing system. The robot is more or less anthropomorphic. So it has a head where the face of the doctor is shown. Here's the console with a 3D screen, with an ultrasound screen and with a teleconferencing app. You have the joystick to control the head, the ultrasound controls, and you have the input device for controlling the probe. The patient and the doctor, they can talk to each other, and the patient can set up the position of the robot's head to have the optimal view. And on the robot, you have all the cameras and the ultrasound device. So the robot is like full embodiment of the doctor. It has an arm, and the assistant is putting the arm in the vicinity of the patient. It doesn't have to be an assistant. Still, the doctor can do it. But back then we thought we don't need this barrier. So we had an assistant pre-positioning the robot. Here we have the doctor controlling the robot with force feedback. For this project, we chose ambitious scenario of echocardiography to make it more difficult, so that you need to really find the sweet spot between the ribs to see the heart and to perform the diagnostics. So as you can see, it's possible to do it. And we had like 600-700 kilometers between the doctor and the patient, and it was working. Here you have the beating heart seen remotely. So it was possible back then. I think it's possible still today. So what we envision is to have, completely autonomous diagnostician at some point, where right now we have the remotely controlled robot. Using this robot, we can sense the motion of the diagnostician. Again, observe the skill transfer. We want to transfer the skill from the human doctor onto the machine performing the diagnostics. Ultrasound is really difficult. It's not just a picture like an MRI or CT scan. So you have the fusion of the image, of the force, and of the position on the body. You basically look inside the body of the patient in real time. But having this interface between the doctor and the patient, we can have this data to learn this. So we really envision to have AI engine learning this, to have a fully autonomous diagnostician. I think I'm running slightly out of time. So we had many of these projects. This is a prototype of a robot for dementia patient. So we envision a robot living in a private house with a patient, and this is the architecture of this robot living in the private house. So you have monitoring modules of the patient and of the environment. You have modeling engine of the human and in the environment, and you basically have a robot performing caregiver task in a home environment. The most important turned to be fall detection. So we can monitor and recognize the case, the incident of a patient falling down. And I'm sorry, my computer is dying. Just a second. I'm back. Okay, just two more slides about the human robotics, which we are talking and working on the whole time in our company. So the robots which live in human environment, there are, as I said, there are different robots than robots from the industry. They need to have the sense of touch, and we conceive these special drives for robotic systems with force sensors, and all the sensors and computing included in the drive. So we have a series of these drives, including, as I said, the whole sensing, plus different shells to give the robots different shapes and different functionalities. So we can have, for example, a robot for ultrasound on an assistive arm. And coming back to our first patient, we have developed an arm for tetraplegic patients, which we put on the arm, on the wheelchairs, and we enable them to eat and drink and eat and live the independent life. So this is what we are doing. We have the whole palette of robotic systems. Some of them can be used for fighting COVID, some not. We, of course, want to have the whole system of robots enabling interventions, diagnostics, and also we have a system for logistics in a hospital. And based on this project, actually, what we are working right now, we're working on a disinfection robot. So we have a mobile platform equipped with various disinfection means. So we have UV light, we have a nebulization device, we have ozone generator, and et cetera, on a mobile platform, which is first controlled from remote distance, from a safe distance, and second, the robot will move autonomously in the say isolation ward. And this is, again, we had hospitals coming to us and asking for this. So obviously there is a strong need for them to disinfect basically any areas on their premises. So this is what keeps us busy. We're not sleeping since a week working on this project. This is the status as of today. So hopefully we will go to the hospital to test it in maybe 2 or 3 days. So please keep fingers crossed that we succeed with this. And just to sum up, we have Jan here giving high five to his father for the first time in his life using robotics. Thank you.
Thank you, Bartek. Fascinating work. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone. This has been such a fascinating session. My body usually is, did I come out of any session smarter or knowing more than when I went into it? And you certainly exceeded that bar by a large margin. Thank you so much. We heard from Dr. Munir about using AI and machine learning on treatment and discovery and the importance of data and noise in data. We heard from Dr. Conrad about using chatbots and other robotic technologies for diagnostic and how accurate some of these technologies are. We heard from Sapan how he is changing the meaning of evidence-based medicine, and fascinating work. And of course, we heard from Dr. Bartek about how to use robots in ensuring that there is some distance and reducing infection rates for healthcare workers. And hopefully one day, each one of us will have their own private physician, if all goes well. So fascinating work. We have a number of questions from the audience, and as well as a number of questions that I thought of as well. So let me start with a question from the audience that was asked in a couple of ways, a couple of times. It's around privacy, whether it is in the work that you are leading, Sapai, or in your work, Bartek. How do we ensure patient privacy and people privacy? Any thoughts on that?
I can go into a little bit of detail on that. So privacy is something which we all take very seriously. It's a basic fundamental human right, and we all want to be careful about how information about ourselves is disclosed to others. In terms of the very rich data analytics that we do, we made a business decision 15 years ago where we said that we do not want access to any kind of protected health information at all. I'm very happy we made that decision. We've seen some of the issues that other large players in this arena are running into with partnerships with hospitals where hundreds of employees may have access to some very private protected health information. And so the optics of it don't look good. There's legal issues around it. We wanted nothing to do with it. We realized that if you're good about scrubbing out all of the protected health information, making it truly 100% de-identified, there's a lot more you can do with the data. And with large data amounts like that, which are now open for clinical use and research purposes, that's truly powerful. And that's how we're able to make some of the changes in this COVID-19 world we live in today.
Thank you so much.
If I can add to that, yes, Desai managed with his company to de-identify, but privacy is still an issue, really.
Yeah.
Because privacy is an issue because we don't know what data will be shared. I mean, we hope there will be privacy all the time, but we all think privacy is there, but every now and then we hear there is a break in the privacy. The other problem with the privacy is the selective use of the data. I mean, just deleting or adding data that might hurt the person, the communities, the districts, the states, whatever it is. The last thing about privacy, privacy is related to the user. So if he wants to stay private or to respect privacy, then it is done. But if they want to go beyond that, for somebody to go beyond, then who can protect it? This is a major concern, really, for most people who can use artificial intelligence or any form of computing as such.
Thank you. Very well said.
We had this issue in a few projects where we go to patients and we perform some tests with them. And usually we don't have big issues. After we explain it to them that this is a research project, and to train AI, we need data. We humans cannot also learn if we don't have data. We need to have the data. When we explain it to our patients and the users that we anonymize this data, we're not interested in their name, address, and phone number, and so on, then it's usually very well understood by our patients and test users.
Thank you. And if I may just, I'm sorry, did I interrupt anyone?
Yeah, maybe only one sentence. We have a very restrictive law in Europe about the private legacy. And it is very difficult to get the data for research. We have a big project from our government to get all medical records free to research, but it is not done yet. And so for each research, we have to have the special allowance from the ethics committee and the permission for each single person who is going to get us data, and the data had to be protected. And this is very difficult to get this done, and it is a lot of work in each university to get the data in a safe data bank. And I think we have to a little bit make it easier for the researcher, and I do hope in Germany we'll get the agenda done in 2021.
Thank you so much. So we saw from your presentation, you shared some examples where machine learning is able to diagnose with like 99% accuracy, 99.9 accuracy. Very, very high accuracy rate. Still, a question that often comes up in machine learning circles is interpretability. And if we move away from decision trees, which are sort of easy to interpret and understand, and because we have to, for certain problems, we have to use sort of high, more complex and higher dimensional models. What are your thoughts around, do you trust it as is? Is it a decision support tool? Any concerns about using black boxes? Anyone who wants to jump on this?
So if I start about the black box, really, black box is a problem. It is a secret, it's a trade secret also. Because if you don't know like how the machine works to say, okay, it is safe, how can you trust it? This is one issue. The other issue, if you want to change the algorithms to skew the data, you can do that very easy. Anybody can do that. The third problem is if you are going to decide the goals rather than to reach the goals, then you can do that. So it's always a problem, but it depends who's doing the project, of course. Yeah. Yes.
Thank you.
From the scientific view, when you have the method which is have an accuracy over 90%, you're excellent. You're experts. You can do everything what you want. And I was very surprised that with machine learning and the program from Hemisphere, from Surgisphere, from Chicago, from Sapan, that they achieved this amount of accuracy only with almost 6,000 patients. I know that in your data right now are 10 times more patients, and probably it is a little bit lower, but it is showing how exact they worked before, how they programmed the machine learning program, and how they just added the data, and how to teach the machine to have such a precise result. And that was probably also the reason why we had such an amount of accuracy in this particular example.
Yeah, I have a comment about that. Thank you very much for that. I think the other thing that model shows is that we also have to be very careful about overfitting. As these algorithms start to unfold and you start to get a little bit more fitting than what's clinically indicated, you start getting into the decimal points on 99.999% accuracy. And this is where actually having a larger data set and pruning the trees and being a little bit more careful about how well the model is fit to the data can actually lead to overall improvements in clinical efficacy. And that's actually the reason why in the severity scoring tool, where we had almost 10 times as many patients, the accuracy actually dropped a little bit. And we were okay with that because now we're having a better clinical impact with some of this. To go to Munir's comments earlier, I agree to an extent about the black box. You know, the black box, it has a scary implication. You know, you start thinking about the CIA and you wonder what else is going on with these algorithms. But with that said, no one is going to argue with IBM when Big Blue makes a machine that beats the world's #1 chess player. At the end of the day, you look at what the output is. And if it takes a sophisticated machine learning algorithm to get there, and you can reproduce the results, and you can demonstrate how you got those results, you've met a very high level of burden of evidence in the scientific world. So you're right. If you're keeping it as a trade secret, you're not open about the disclosures, you're not open about how the algorithms work, that could lead to a problem. But if you're transparent and you use good data and good algorithms and good communication to do it, that's a very different world.
I agree on the transparency aspect, because, you know, I'm in the machine learning sort of domain, and I distinguish between transparency and interpretability.
Yeah.
Transparency is about explaining what data you used, the experimental setup, the algorithms, having your results open and public, and even allowing people to run their own data sets through it. Interpretability is about explaining how a particular decision was made.
Yeah.
And while many researchers are, you know, working on that, it's really difficult when you have millions of parameters interacting together in a nonlinear way to make sense out of it. Never mind millions, you know, few dozens. Yeah. So that's remains sort of a difficult goal for all of us. Let me squeeze maybe a couple more questions. We have 5-6 minutes remaining. And so we saw some examples, impressive use of AI and machine learning to help sort of us with the COVID-19 challenge. Any gaps, any areas that you gentlemen did not see and would like to see some of the machine learning community start to address?
There is one very important gap, very, very critical gap here. So back in March, we saw a signal in our database that there was the beginning of a worldwide pandemic going on. It was just a few thousand cases, but it was a signal like no other, almost like a alien intelligence contacting SETI with a supernova saying that we are here. And the biggest challenge we ran into was helping others around us understand the capabilities that machine learning and big data had in this space. Getting the tools built was the easy part. Getting them distributed to people who could use it at the front lines was the hard part. And it's because there's so little that the scientific community, the public, and public health leaders understand about the power of good big data and good machine learning. And so helping to fix the education gap would make a big difference.
Very well, thank you. other comments?
So the other gap really, which I see, is to have a parallel interest between the political arena and the scientific arena. And this is the major problem. Actually, the delay was between December and March, really, was politics, economy, and should we do or not. So if you leave the decisions to the machine, that's okay. But if you selectively modify the results of the machine, that is the problem. Yeah. So again, trust in the machine and trust in the people giving the result is a major gap so far.
Thank you. Let me see if I can get another question from the audience here. I think for a number of questions on, and I think Munir, you started talking about this, which is about the challenges, some of the challenges that we face in implementing some of these AI strategies in the regional and sort of country levels. And so I'm not sure if anybody wants to add to Munir's comments, but that there was a question around that from the audience.
You know, the other challenge is that Conrad and Munir both talked about this a little bit, and so did Bartek. You know, what this really goes to is the quality of your machine learning. The robots you're building, the algorithms we're building, goes towards getting high quality data at the end of the day. Your algorithms and robots are only as good as the quality of the data collection and the volume of data collection. And so opening up access to hospital systems, EHRs, financial systems, supply chain systems, again, with very careful considerations around protecting the critical private information, but at least sharing the data that leads to advances in research. We did that with the New England. You're doing this with the robots you're creating, which are phenomenal. There's something to be said about open access to data.
Yes, thank you so much. Which actually invites another question: how can people access sort of your data and contribute to it and be part of the movement that you guys are creating?
Call us. It's free. It doesn't cost anything, and we are happy to collaborate. Fantastic.
This is really good. I have to say, go ahead.
I can tell you, Khalid, we are using his data. We are
yes.
The matter called him, and we are doing a lot of research with him. We are.
Fantastic. Listen, we are running out of time. You know, a few years ago, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, I attended a PhD defense from a friend of mine in pharmacology at the University of Minnesota. And other than, if I missed the first maybe 3-4 slides in his presentation, the first 5 minutes or 10 minutes from the presentation, which lasts for an hour, I would have thought that I am sitting at a machine learning conference, with all honesty. So it's amazing how different fields are coming together, and this is sort of the nature of the beast. Yeah, innovations often happen at the intersection of different disciplines, and in this instance, it's computer science and machine learning, engineering, and medicine. And as I hear you guys speak and make your presentations, I often come to something that's you know, I say in my circles, which is outside of medicine, which is if machine learning applications were a dish, then that dish requires 3 ingredients: data, subject matter expertise, and AI expertise. You know, because data is the key. It's the input and the output from the machine. This is what we use to train. And subject matter expertise, and in this case, physicians and biochemists and so on, are key, not just to they are not just the users of the machine learning algorithms, they are also part designers, because you need to capture the nuances of the domain in a way that the machine can compute on, and you guys demonstrated this very well. And lastly, of course, you need the scientists and engineers who can build some of these models. This has been fascinating and a unique session, and at least for me, you know, I don't get to say to my fellow panelists often, thank you for saving lives, and I mean that literally. So Thank you for excellent presentations, fascinating discussion. Very much enjoyed it, and thank you for the audience who joined this session. Thank you for your questions. I hope you found it informative and interesting. This will be available on Trends Research YouTube channel. So if you didn't have to watch it or part of it, you can watch it and share it. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.